call sticky conversations. Right? You have on the table a handout, and I'll cover everything in the handout. I'm pretty sure it's for you to take home tonight instead of going to the gala. You can reread what you learned today. It's so much fun. And then also a card on there. If you'd like the method I'm going to share with you, it's kind of have it at your fingertips. So that's the housekeeping. But today, my plan is to share a framework with you for engaging in conversations. I call them real talk conversations. They're sticky, generally super important, otherwise we would have a lot of energy around them. And before I talk about that process, I want to share a tool with you to help with your own self-understanding, how to frame yourself, get yourself ready and grounded to have a difficult conversation. So that's what we're going to spend the first part of the session, because the only thing that you can control in the conversation is you. You can't control other people. I have tried. I was married for 20 years. And in 20 years, I could not control. You can only control yourself. So we're going to talk about what it is that you can do to ground yourself, to keep it prepared, to understand what's happening inside of you to engage in what I call these sticky conversations. So what keeps us from engaging in sticky conversations? Conflict avoidance, yeah.
Not knowing how.
Not knowing how. What else? Fear, right? It's our fear. Fear. And did you know that according to developmental psychologists, we are born with 2 innate fears? Did you know that? Only 2. Did you know that? You don't know what the 2 fears are then?
That's spiders and then.
That's we are born with the fear of falling and the fear of loud noises. The fear of falling is gravity, kind of sucks, right? You're not ready for it. And the fear of loud noises can cause a scar. So those are our fears that we're born with. Does anyone have any other fears? We've got spiders. What else?
Well, you said clowns.
Clowns? Yes. Okay. What else?
I said people.
People? People?
Not knowing.
Not knowing? Okay, yeah.
Public speaking.
Public speaking. Yeah, I feel you. Where do they come from? Where do the fears come from? Knowledge, lack of experience. Do they come from the stories that we tell ourselves about how the world works? Our brains are prediction mechanisms, and we have to predict the world around us. It's like when we're driving down the road, we can predict that people will stop and drive, but not always. We can predict that people will drive in North America on the right-hand side of the road, but not always. There's some seats up here in the front. So our brain is predicting, and sometimes we predict right, and that keeps us sort of safe and secure, but sometimes we have this thing called prediction error, and we make mistakes. We make assumptions about how something's working, we're going to be, and we're wrong. And that's where delightful surprises live in our world. Because we want to be wrong from time to time, so that means we're learning. So I'm going to show you an image. And if you've seen this before, just take a drink of water, don't talk, zip it, yes. And I want you to tell me what you see here in this picture. Anyone just, what do you see? Someone stabbing? Okay. See it now? Okay. What right now your brain is thinking, what is this most like? Not what is it like. It's going in your memory and it's saying, what is this most like? Because you don't have all the data. You need more information. And that's what it's like with sticky conversations. We think we know how the other person feels, what they're thinking, what they're going to do, but we don't, we're just guessing. And when we get more information, when we fill it in, we add more dimension and more color, and we can see it more clearly. And now you never unsee the bee, right? It's super clear. Darn it. You need a better resolution photo. Okay, so theoretically, we're gathering more information. And when we're having it, that's getting ready to have challenging conversation, it's like we are, in our mind, we have to prepare ourselves. And we can only prepare ourselves for that based on our past experience, whether we're conscious of it or not. Does that make sense? So, what keeps us from having those conversations? Most of you, many of you said fear. We're afraid of having a conversation. So imagine, if you will, you're swimming in the ocean and you see this beast. What might you feel? Fear. Okay. Now play with me. If you go in that very same ocean and you see a shark, but you're in a shark cage, theoretically, would you feel less fear? Theoretically. Go with me. Yeah, right? Why? What changed? Did the shark change? No, your ability to cope with the shark changed. So I propose to you, our one fear, aside from falling in loud noises, is our fear of our inability to cope. My one fear is my inability to cope, not so much with having a difficult conversation with you, or giving you constructive feedback, or making a mistake, owning my mistake. My one fear is my fear of my inability to cope with your reaction. So if we can increase our ability to react, or a better word is to respond rather than react, then we can engage in a sticky conversation with more confidence. Does that make sense? Okay. One more. How do we do that? Has anyone seen this formula, E plus R equals O? Does anyone know what that means? It's a very technical group. This is a formula. I tried. E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. All the outcomes you're experiencing in your life is because you responded to an event in a particular way. Many people want to blame the outcome on the event. I shot my worst golf game because it was windy. But that doesn't account for the person who shot their best golf game on that same windy day. So how we respond to the events in our life create the outcomes. Is that formula you can play with just for today? All right, makes sense. All events that happen in our life are neutral. They have no meaning. We give them meaning with the stories that we've created, with our prediction, the stories we have in our mind about how the world works. And so if we can increase what I call our dimensionality, we can increase the way we view perspectives on a situation or an event, we can change our responses to get really well. Fairly simple. Simple to say, hard to do. But all of our personal power lies between the gap between the event and the response. But it happens so quickly. Right? You know, Bob shows up late for a meeting. Bob's in charge. It's my meeting. Is there a monitor? Check it out first before you go. So we immediately give it meaning. And we do that. So if we can kind of create more space between the event and response, we can then work towards the outcomes that we most desire. It might not be on the first time, it might not be on the second time, but we have a framework, we understand ourselves enough that we can work towards it. Does that make sense? Okay. So, the main thing I want to share with you today is a tool called story mapping. And story mapping I find to be a way to unpack in my mind what's going on for me before I engage in a conversation. So this is the part that you decide if you want to play along or not. You don't have to share this with anyone. It's only with yourself. But if you turn to page 8 in your handout, should you choose to accept the mission, I'd like you to identify a situation that feels sticky, a conversation that doesn't feel like it went well, a request you want to make. Just write down really quick 4 or 5 bullet points. You're not going to have to share this with anyone. Just get the context, bring it to life. You have nothing that's on your mind or bothering you right now. You might have at one point in your life, so try to think about that. Just put 4 or 5 bullet points down. The best you can. Hard one? And you don't have to share it, it's just good to have a framework. And a conversation feels sticky because it's important. Because the relationship is important enough to you that it kind of is rolling around in your mind whether it's something you want to make a request for or something you want to talk about. So if you finish that, keep doing it, you're not done. But the next thing I want you to do is then think about how does the other person see it? How might the other person feel about the situation? It's your story about the other person. Does that make sense? Don't want to write anything down. Just try to remember a time someone tipped you off. You feel like you weren't heard. Remember, with thinking someone else's perspective, we have no idea. We're just guessing, right? We kind of like to be with all the information. We're guessing from our past experiences, stories, how the world would work for us. All right. And the next thing you're going to do is I'll take you through an exercise of mapping your story. And once we do it once, you can use this for anything. You can do it in your head. But it's really important to break things down step by step. When I was younger and I was going to university, I used to work with mentally disabled kids. And I taught them how to tie their shoes. There are 10 steps to tying a shoe. And it's something we don't even think about anymore. My kids don't even know how to tie their shoes because I brought them Velcro. But notwithstanding that, there's 10 steps. So we can break things apart, we can see them. We can get less enrolled in the energy of it. We can have a clear mind about how to engage in the conversation. So how we do that is we break it into event, story, feeling, response. And once we map it out, then we can go, what do I really want? And again, the event is neutral. So thinking about your situation, for example, I'll use a real example of these two guys that are working with Bob and Leo. And Bob and Leo both applied for the same job. Leo got the job. You see that happening? Leo becomes Bob's boss. Okay? Bob was way better technically, but Leo was better with people. That's why leadership is there. So then Leo was put in charge of running a task force on a real intense project. They had to meet every Thursday at 9 o'clock. 3 Thursdays in a row. Bob showed up 30 minutes late. Walked into the meeting, sat down, opened his book, and didn't say anything to anyone about why he was late. Those are facts, right? We can videotape that. Bob and Leo both applied for the job. Leo got the job. They had a task force meeting every Thursday at 9 o'clock. Bob shows up at 9:30, 3 weeks in a row, and doesn't say anything to anyone. Okay? So try to unpack. The first part is what in your situation, if you wrote on a situation, how would you describe the event? As if you were just looking for something you could see or something you could hear. What are the facts? Just the facts. And remember that? Show up page by myself. Drag it. Try to identify the facts into the situation. This is the sticky part. Because we love our facts and our stories to be real. The facts are the event is neutral. The next thing you do is this is the best part. This is where you get to be like a playwright. What is the story you created about the event? What did you tell yourself? What meaning did you give it? So fill that next box in. Bob was trying to sabotage me because I got the job he didn't. Bob thinks he's better than me. Bob thinks he doesn't have to show up for meetings. Whatever the story is. Is this making sense back here? Logically making sense. be writing them down as long as you get some. This is just your interpretation. This is just what you think happened. And it happens like that. And then what also happens like that is it creates a feeling. I'm irritated, frustrated, I'm resentful, I'm excited, I'm anxious. Think of the feeling that you created, the emotion that was created by the story you told about the event that was neutral. And a feeling is one word. You say, I feel irritated with God because you're back in story. Just think of a feeling. Has anyone ever had an experience where you get an email and you write it back, and you hit send, and then you're like, oh, I should have said that. No, just table.
We're in IT, we can click on do.
Yeah, true. You have extra tools. But because we react so quickly, remember E plus R equals O, event plus response equals outcome. Many of us have an event when we react. When we respond, we take responsibility. So we have to think about that feeling, that sensation right here in your body. I know I get tense, I slow my throat, it's like, and that's the best time to take a breath. But many times, we just respond and we take action. We do something, right? What action did you take, or were you thinking of taking, or are you thinking of taking in that situation? This happens so quickly that if we can stop time, we can see it, we're not there. Does that make sense? What did you want to do? Or what did you do? I know I've sent many emails and never regretted it. I need texting. Or how many times have you sat in a meeting and you have something you want to say and you hold yourself back? You should tell yourself a story. What if this is a stupid moment? What if it takes someone else? And then the next thing in this process is like Leo was irritated and his response. This is a true story. These are two senior executives with a company I work with in Calgary. His response was, I withheld information from Bob, and I did not invite him to Elizabeth's birthday lunch. That is the adult version of you can't come to my birthday party. And this is what happens. When we think about relationships, my relationship with you isn't here, and it isn't here. It's in the space between. And we want to manage the space between. And then throwing a bunch of people together, it's very complex. We have all these people saying, why Bob not at Elizabeth's birthday party? And then Leo felt a bit sure. However, there's a happy ending to the story. So how he responded, we did this exercise and had people actually map out their stories when they're in conflict. And we put mats on the floor and they face each other. These mats are on the floor and they tell their story. The event, my story about the event, my feeling. And usually people think their story is fact, so I'd say go into the story box, that's the story. A feeling because, go back to the story box, and they tell their stories. And then when it feels like the energy is dissipating, you get people to a place where they're able to have these conversations with each other. The question is to say, what do I want? And is what I'm doing getting me closer to or further from what I want? That's the key question. That's when we stop ourselves and say, what do I really want here? And to add more fuel to the Leo Fox saga, they were best friends that used to play hockey together. They used to go to hockey tournaments. I mean, there's so many layers of everything. And they had this thing going. And so they had to have this conversation. And this is the format that they used. And Leo just said, I just want to feel respected by you. I want to learn from you because what I know is I feel insecure around you because you're more technically sound than me. And Mark said, yeah, I am. I am. And Leo said, why are you showing up late for my meetings? I don't understand. And he said, oh, well, it's simple. I have to drop the kids at daycare on the way to work. I can't be here before 9:30. So there's a simple explanation, but there's even more layers to that. Because he agreed to the 9 o'clock meeting. How many of us agree to do things that we know we're not going to do? And it can create a story. So how do you get out of this? Can we start the meeting at 9:30? This is my situation, blah, blah, blah. It could have been a lot bigger. However, they had to re-navigate the relationship. This is ongoing. This isn't just helpful. It isn't just a one-size-fits-all solution. You have to keep having this conversation, this dialogue, to check out your assumptions. But when you do your story map, you can identify, what is it that I really want in this situation? And is it worth me? Is it worth engaging in that difficult conversation? Do I want to invite that other person into a conversation? Has anyone had a situation where someone go to bed thinking about something, and you wake up thinking? Those are the things that occupy your unconscious mind that you need to address to give yourself freedom. And the most difficult thing is starting it off. Would you agree? Starting off with a difficult conversation? Here's the tip. It's called first truth first. And remember, you're not afraid of the shark in the water. You're afraid of your inability to cope with the shark in the water. You're not afraid of the person you're having a conversation with. You're afraid of your inability to cope with what they have to say or their response to you. So the first truth first is, I'm really afraid of what I have to say is going to change our relationship. Because that's really what's going on. It's going to impact our relationship. My first truth first is, I feel like if I tell you about this mistake I made, the first truth first is, if I ask for a promotion or to be on this project that's way beyond my capacity, I might get rejected. That's the first truth first. And then you can engage in a conversation. But the only way to get to that first truth first is to narrow our story. Is to say, what's really happening? And this process, I can run through in my head. Oh, what's happening? Oh, my story. Oh, I want to talk about my kid. Oh, what do I really want? I want shalom in the home. I want to build a relationship. You only use this process if you're interested in engaging in building a relationship with someone, right? Here's the good news. Is if you can see it, you're not in. This process allows you to step away from the heat and to watch yourself without being enrolled in the emotion. Catch yourself. You can learn to objectively watch yourself and not get swept away. And you can tell a new story. You can add dimension to the bead, like we added color. You can add dimension. And this formula that I'm going to share with you is a way to engage in a conversation that you enter into it and you stay present with a willingness to be transformed by the conversation. And I call it real talk. And real talk it helps you facilitate practical conversations between people who matter to you. And it's pretty simple. The first step is to reflect what's really going on for you and what do you want. That's the story map. What's happening? Yeah, I like this, I don't like this, I feel triggered. Stop the trigger, react, figure out how to respond. Empathize what might be their experience. Remember, it's a story. We have no idea. They might have behaved the same way 10,000 times, but they might be different 10,001. You don't know, you're just predicting. So empathize. Ask permission to share and engage in a conversation. Hey, would you be willing to spend time talking about this situation? Give someone a heads up. Right? Have you ever been bombarded with somebody wanting to have a difficult conversation you're not prepared? Give them the grace of preparation and then share your story. First is, I'm afraid this is going to impact our relationship. The other day, when you came to the meeting 3 minutes late for the third time, didn't tell us or tell me why you were late. I just noticed getting more and more frustrated with you. I feel like you're out to get me. And then you're starting to engage. You say, how do you see it? This is when you drink water. My best advice is drinking water. Because you can't talk. You're drinking water, you're just listening. Listen, how do they say it? It doesn't mean they're right. Understanding isn't agreeing. You're just trying to engage in a conversation and then align and clarify where needed. And this isn't a panacea, it's not a silver bullet to fix every broken relationship or every conflict, but it's a really good framework to start. Because you're starting with self-awareness. And then you're listening from a place, I say, listening from a place with a willingness to be transformed by the conversation. I am willing to learn from you, about you, in order to make our relationship better. Because this matters. And then keep evolving it. It's not going to fix it overnight. It's not going to be skipping, singing kumbaya. It takes time to rebuild relationships, especially when we have stories going on. And remembering that our stories come from our past experiences, whether we remember them or not, that's what brings us together. And here's the beautiful thing about organizations and teams. Everybody brings their 10,000 stories to the table. And we have this kind of mosaic of people trying to figure out how to get along, all these spaces between that we're trying to navigate. And if we could have clear ways of talking, we could solve problems more practically and effectively. And I really believe that this framework works. Why it works is real, because it's focused on ourselves, like how am I engaging in this conversation? The dialogue, the talk part reminds us that this is a dialogue, not a monologue. In this person. So that's the framework I wanted to share with you today. So what I'm wondering is if anyone has any questions. Yes, sir.
This is really good, an issue that we do first.
Yep.
Leadership responsibility, actually, that's stories. As we manage conflict, where address the conflict, people take conflict for yourself, you know, making decisions here that was accomplished versus the other.
Yes. So great question. You might not have heard it back. It's like, what if you have two people who are on your team who are in conflict and you have to facilitate the conflict? Okay, right? Essentially. Yeah.
Then conflict levels
Give you a, so in a leadership role, we have to have the courage to set the table for difficult conversations. And we also have to notice when we're getting too involved in that story and so one or the other story. But we need, it sounds so trite, I hear myself. But if you can create a space where people feel psychologically safe enough to share their perspective, and if they can't share their perspective, to say, well, this is how I see it, this is how I see it, you're the mediator, you are not in there. You have to stay above it. Look at yourself as a orchestra. It's not playing any instrument, but you're moving against it. And say, you know, what's your story about? What's your story? You know, and what's going on? How do you feel about it? And what happened? So let's go back to the original event. What really happened? Well, you know, Bob is showing up late for the meeting. So what's going on? Bob, what kept you doing? Bob had a responsibility to stay with me. And he said, I was actually really sabotaging. I was angry about the job. So yeah, all of that is true. You might be right. But how are you two going to work together? There's no simple way. But if you people tools are talking, they understand what am I believing right now that is causing me to react this way. Am I willing to question my belief? There's no simple answer. Next question.
Did you join yourself first?
I do this with groups. I have them walk them together. And it's,
First, we talk.
yeah, but I do foundational work first. But yeah, I think that teams that learn and grow and hit together get stronger if it's facilitated in a way that's psychologically safe. Because you can go to therapy, you can go to a coaching session, you can have all these transformational moments by yourself, but nobody holds you accountable because they don't know you did it do it with a team. We can work in creating stuff together, but you have to build the gradient of trust. So those are great questions. If you want to have a conversation about it, I'm happy to walk you through some ways to create psychological safety. Happy to do it if you want to reach out. But I am on my time. Happy to talk a couple minutes, but if you want to, we can talk after, because the other person has to come in and prepare for the session. I don't want to take your time. But thank you very much.